The Cold War wasn't just fought with spies and missiles, it was fought in the skies. These are the incredible aircraft designed to fly higher, faster, and farther than anything before them. What if I told you the US Navy spent billions building a stealth attack jet, only to cancel it before a single one ever flew? This is the unbelievable story of the A-12 Avenger II. In the 1980s, the US Navy wanted a stealth aircraft that could replace the legendary A-6 Intruder. McDonnell Douglas and General Dynamics answered with one of the strangest aircraft ever designed, a flying triangle built to evade enemy radar. The A-12 wasn't just stealthy, it was designed to penetrate Soviet air defenses from aircraft carriers. Internal bomb bays, advanced composite materials, and radar-absorbing construction would have made it one of the Navy's first true stealth strike aircraft. But behind closed doors, everything was falling apart. The aircraft became far heavier than expected, costs exploded into the billions, and engineers struggled to make the revolutionary design actually work. In 1991, after billions had already been spent, the Pentagon canceled the entire program. It became one of the largest defense contract failures in U.S. history and triggered decades of lawsuits between the government and its contractors. The A-12 never reached the sky, but many of its stealth ideas influenced future aircraft like the F-35 and helped shape modern naval aviation. Sometimes even failure changes the future. Follow for more Cold War technology. What if I told you America's most important Cold War fighter prototype was slow, unstable, and never entered production? In 1948, the Convair XF-92A took flight looking like something decades ahead of its time. Its enormous triangular wing made it America's first true delta-wing aircraft. But this futuristic jet was originally meant to become a high-altitude interceptor. Instead of a conventional tail, the XF-92A used hydraulically powered elevons built into its huge wing. Convair believed this design could remain stable at extreme speeds while providing enough lift for a new generation of supersonic fighters. But the XF-92A had a dangerous flaw. During tight turns, its nose could suddenly pitch upward, sometimes forcing pilots through more than 6 Gs, and on one flight, over 8. Test pilot Scott Crossfield called its flying qualities miserable. Engineers added wing fences to control the problem, but the prototype never became the interceptor originally imagined. In October 1953, its nose gear collapsed after landing at Edwards. Crossfield escaped unharmed, but the XF-92A never flew again. The XF-92A failed as a fighter, but proved the delta wing could work. Its test data helped shape the F-102, F-106, Sea Dart, and B-58 Hustler. This strange prototype never fought a war, yet its DNA spread across an entire generation of Cold War aircraft. The Soviet Union built a bomber so futuristic that Western intelligence reportedly wondered whether it was powered by a nuclear reactor. But the truth was even stranger. It could barely reach the speed it was designed for. In 1959, the Soviet Union unveiled the Myasishchov M50, an enormous experimental bomber designed to carry nuclear weapons across continents at supersonic speed. NATO called it the Bounder. Its designers wanted a massive intercontinental bomber capable of approaching Mach 2. 2 engines hung beneath the wings, while 2 more were mounted directly on the wingtips. The aircraft's enormous size and unusual layout confused Western analysts. Some suspected it might be connected to Soviet experiments with nuclear-powered aircraft, but its intended engines were not ready. The substitutes lacked enough power, and the giant bomber never achieved its promised performance. In July 1961, the only flying M50 appeared over Moscow in a dramatic display of Soviet power. It never entered service. The Bounder became a Cold War illusion built to terrify the West. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. What Cold War bomber was so loud that submarines could reportedly hear it flying overhead and still carries nuclear-capable missiles more than 70 years after its first flight? Meet the Tupolev Tu-95 Bear. First flown in 1952, the Tu-95 was the Soviet Union's answer to America's long-range strategic bombers. NATO called it the Bear, and despite its propellers, it could cross continents carrying nuclear weapons. Its secret was 4 enormous NK-12 turboprop engines. Each powered 2 propellers spinning in opposite directions. Their blade tips approached supersonic speed, creating one of the loudest aircraft ever built. The Bear was designed to fly deep into enemy territory with nuclear bombs. Later versions carried long-range cruise missiles, allowing crews to attack without ever approaching the most heavily defended targets. Tu-95s regularly approached NATO airspace, forcing American and Allied fighters to intercept them over the Arctic and North Atlantic. These encounters became some of the Cold War's most recognizable aerial confrontations. More than 7 decades after its first flight, modernized Bears remained part of Russia's strategic aviation force. Jets became faster and stealthier, but the roaring Tu-95 survived by becoming a flying cruise missile arsenal. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. If nuclear war destroyed America's command centers, this aircraft was designed to keep the government and the military fighting from the sky. This is the Boeing E-4B Nightwatch, better known as America's doomsday plane. Behind its ordinary 747 appearance is a heavily modified airborne command center built for the worst day in human history. The E-4B was hardened against the electromagnetic pulses produced by nuclear explosions. Its protected electronics and communication systems were designed to keep functioning when normal command centers and civilian networks might be disabled. Inside are command rooms, briefing areas, communication stations, and space for dozens of military specialists. From the air, national leaders could communicate with bombers, missile forces, submarines, and surviving units around the world. At least one E-4B is maintained on alert around the clock. With aerial refueling, it can remain airborne for extended missions, giving America a mobile command post that is extremely difficult to eliminate. The E-4B's greatest weapon is not a missile. It is survival. By guaranteeing that American leaders could still issue orders after an attack, the Doomsday plane helped make launching that attack far more dangerous. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. At the height of the Cold War, this ordinary-looking jet carried one of America's most terrifying responsibilities, the Boeing EC-135. Looking Glass was a flying command center built to control U.S. nuclear forces after a surprise attack. Beginning February 3, 1961, Strategic Air Command kept a Looking Glass aircraft airborne 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. For more than 29 years, one was always circling above America, waiting for the order nobody wanted. It was called Looking Glass because it mirrored Strategic Air Command's underground headquarters. Inside were senior officers, communications specialists, and battle staff who could direct America's strategic forces if ground command was destroyed. Specially equipped crews could even transmit emergency commands to Minuteman missile fields if underground launch control centers were disabled. Continuous patrols ended in 1990, and the EC-135 left the mission in 1998. But Looking Glass survived aboard the Navy's E-6B Mercury, keeping America's backup nuclear command post in the sky. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. What if I told you America's first stealth bomber wasn't the B-2? It flew in 1947? This aircraft was so far ahead of its time that it looked like it came from the future. In 1947, Northrop rolled out the YB-49 Flying Wing, a bomber with no tail and no traditional fuselage. Its radical design stunned military officials and looked unlike any aircraft the world had ever seen. The entire aircraft acted as one giant wing, reducing drag and improving efficiency. But without modern computers, keeping the bomber stable in flight became one of aviation's greatest engineering challenges. Powered by 8 Allison J-35 turbojet engines, the YB-49 reached speeds of more than 490 miles per hour. It was one of the fastest heavy bombers ever built and hinted at the future of military aviation. Everything changed in 1948 when a test flight crashed, killing legendary pilot Captain Glenn Edwards and 4 crew members. Soon after, the Air Force canceled the entire Flying Wing program in favor of the massive Convair B-36. The YB-49 disappeared, but its revolutionary design didn't. More than 40 years later, Northrop's Flying Wing concept returned as the B-2 Spirit, proving the original idea had simply been decades ahead of its time. Did America cancel one of the greatest aircraft ever designed, or was the world just not ready for it? Follow for more forgotten Cold War technology. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. During the Cold War, NATO built an aircraft that could detect an enemy attack hundreds of miles away and command an entire air battle from the sky. The E-3 Sentry was created by transforming a Boeing 707 airliner into a flying radar station. Its enormous rotating dome could track aircraft from low altitude to the stratosphere. Ground radar could lose low-flying bombers and fighters behind hills or inside radar clutter. But the E-3 looked down from above, separating moving aircraft from the terrain beneath them. But spotting the enemy was only half its mission. Operators aboard the Sentry identified targets, directed interceptors, and helped commanders control friendly aircraft across the battlefield. Entering U.S. Air Force service in 1977, the E-3 became one of NATO's most important airborne command systems. It proved that controlling the information above a battlefield could be as powerful as controlling the weapons. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. What if America built a fighter so fast and automated that it could intercept Soviet nuclear bombers and attack them with a nuclear rocket? The F-106 began as an improved F-102, but extensive redesigns, a streamlined area-ruled fuselage, and a powerful J-75 engine transformed it into an entirely new aircraft. Its MA-1 fire control system could guide the aircraft toward its target, position it for attack, launch its weapons, and direct it back toward base. Hidden inside its internal weapons bay were 4 Falcon missiles and an AIR-2 Genie carrying a nuclear warhead intended to destroy entire bomber formations. But the strangest F-106 story came in 1970. After its pilot ejected from a flat spin, the empty aircraft recovered and belly landed almost perfectly in a snowy field. The ultimate interceptor had somehow saved itself. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. This Cold War interceptor was built to race towards Soviet nuclear bombers, but there was one embarrassing problem. The original F-102 couldn't even break the sound barrier. The prototype's straight fuselage created massive drag near Mach 1. Convair's futuristic Delta Wing interceptor was dangerously close to becoming an expensive failure before entering service. Engineers applied Richard Whitcomb's revolutionary area rule, pinching the fuselage around the wings. That strange Coke bottle shape reduced drag, and finally pushed the redesigned aircraft past Mach 1. Once operational, the F-102 used radar and an automated fire control system to attack in any weather. Its internal weapons bay carried 6 guided missiles and 24 rockets. Entering service in 1956, the Deuce became America's first operational supersonic all-weather interceptor and first operational Delta Wing fighter, guarding Cold War skies and paving the way for the F-106. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. Before the SR-71 ruled the skies, America designed a massive Mach 3 interceptor built to hunt Soviet nuclear bombers before they could reach the continent. The XF-108 was meant to patrol the enormous northern approaches, detect incoming bombers hundreds of miles away, and attack them long before they reached American cities. Its enormous nose would carry the advanced AN/ASG-18 radar, guiding 3 long-range AIM-47 Falcon missiles stored inside a rotating internal weapons bay. Powered by the same J-93 engines planned for the XB-70 Valkyrie, the 2-seat Rapier was expected to approach Mach 3 at more than 70,000 feet. But in 1959, rising costs and the growing threat from intercontinental ballistic missiles killed the program. The XF-108 never flew, leaving America's ultimate interceptor trapped on the drawing board. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories. In the 1950s, America designed a fighter so extreme that its pilot would sit inside an escape capsule while the aircraft raced toward Soviet bombers at 3 times the speed of sound. This was the Republic XF-103, and it looked like it came from the future. The XF-103 was created to intercept Soviet nuclear bombers before they could reach American cities. Instead of chasing enemies in a traditional dogfight, it would climb above 60,000 feet, accelerate past Mach 3, launch guided missiles, and disappear before enemy escorts could react. To reach those speeds, Republic planned a combined propulsion system. A turbojet would power takeoff and acceleration. Then, at high speed, a giant ramjet surrounding the engine would take over, transforming the aircraft into something closer to a piloted missile. At Mach 3, an ordinary ejection seat could be fatal. The pilot would sit inside a sealed cockpit capsule with small viewing windows and a periscope. During an emergency, the entire capsule could separate. But the engines fell behind schedule, costs continued rising, and no complete prototype was ever finished. In 1957, the Air Force canceled the XF-103, an interceptor built decades ahead of its time. Follow, like, and share for more Cold War stories.